I was born ready.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Uh, happy Sunday. What's up? Ben Toombs in first and Shane Lalone. John Burnell was here, but he decided that he had better things to do, like most unfaithful watchers of the show. Steve Parsons, how you doing? Today we're going to change our episode today. Instead of an April recap, we're just going to make fun of John Burnell the whole day. No, I'm just kidding. What's up, Trail Dust? We've got little Benny Boo Boo in the house, Mr. Pekka. All right, and a few lurkers here and there. Probably, my brother and sister-in-law, I believe, are out to breakfast right now with my dad, and so they're all the way somewhere in Ohio. They're on their way down. I know I mentioned last 2 weeks that they'd be coming down, and they decided to take breaks. So, yeah, it's pushing their arrival time. We'll get to that. What's up, Boar? So, Jack Pines, how's it going? But so yeah, Sunday. We are
Sunday.
But yeah, so we'll go into the how was your week. I believe you, sir, have a whole bunch of stuff to get for us to giggle about. I have to go into the podcast thing. That's what that is.
Whilst you're pulling that up, I'll start to have a chat. So my week's been fairly productive in the sense of I did my yards. I also started putting together my new workshop in order to have a space to do some work. But the most interesting thing is what Yamas is actually bringing up now. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, when I got back from my honeymoon, I visited Port Arthur. Now we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the round stone that was at Port Arthur, which I think is a wheelwright stone. And since I've gotten back, I've had a little bit of a further dig into that, and just so that because I actually intend on sending in a little bit of a report through to the archaeologists at Port Arthur in explaining my reasoning, and also giving a little bit of evidence as to why that supports my reasoning. Now, in that process, I actually did a little bit of further investigation into the archaeology that they'd done, and brought up the reports that I could find, and watched some video lectures and stuff like that done by the venerable Dr. Tuffin, which was one of the archaeologists on the project, and also Dr. Silvana, which is she's the head of archaeology and historical maintenance, I believe is her title, at Port Arthur, and so she assisted. Dr. Tuffin was assisting her in the archaeology. So I've read as many of their reports that I could get hold of, and actually in doing that, I come across the original plans and everything for the blacksmith workshop, and in comparing that to the archaeological dig, I wanted to basically outline how I think the workshop would have actually been set up. And so I contacted a friend of mine that is a lot better than me in 3D modeling, because I have absolutely no idea. And you can see on the screen just behind me, if Yama starts to bring up the pictures, I've actually talk with him, and these are only draft pictures at the moment, but actually talk to him about the historical layout of how the workshop from 1856 to 1877 of Port Arthur would have been laid out. So what we're looking at now is the top-down view, and then into the actual forge. A few things are a little bit out of place, like in the back corner, there's a small square brick thing that's actually supposed to be a crucible furnace, and the brick column that's beside it is actually supposed to represent a chimney that actually comes out the top. So that's actually supposed to be over the crucible furnace that we can see. There's also records of them having a smelter of some description. From all the evidence I can find, it's most likely to be a cupola furnace, which is what you can see, that grey cylindrical object at the background. Also, during the archaeology, they found an anvil with the heel and the horn broken off. So that's which, of course, we all know that happens. That can happen through a use or abuse. And so that's
that could also happen if you don't preheat your anvil.
But so that's what's represented on the stump there, in it being a full anvil, of course. But they actually found that anvil in a quote unquote pit right under basically where that anvil stump is there. They found the anvil there, and they thought the archaeologists thought that it because after the closure of the penitentiary, the building that the blacksmith shop was in was actually reclaimed. So meaning they demolished it and actually used the stones and stuff and the bricks and stuff in it in order to use somewhere else. And they actually found that anvil in the pit, and they thought that it may have been pushed into the pit, into the hole or depression where the anvil stump is, during the reclamation. And I argued against this that because it was basically underneath, I think that the stump had actually been burnt out for some reason, and that in that process the anvil had actually collapsed into the hole, and that's why it was still there. Because I mean, as we all know, as working blacksmiths, no one would leave an anvil, particularly, back in those days, mid to late 1800s. That was a very useful and expensive, relatively expensive tool. So with either a farmer or another blacksmith would have come and knocked that off at some stage, and no one would have left it there for 150 years. So everything that we've got there is basically my 3D render is my artist's interpretation of what would have likely existed in the blacksmith forge behind the anvil. Behind the forge there would have been a couple of workbenches with them, some vices. You can see a grinding stone there. Like I said, it's still a work in process. This is still only the first set of drafts that we're trying to get completed. But yeah, I can
go next slide, and I would like to say real quick for those listening in the podcast, we have pictures that go along with this. If you could either watch the stream, rewatch the stream for Sunday's show to get a reference of the pictures, or we will post them in the Discord in a section somewhere, Forge layout or something like that. And all of those links will be available on the podcast information or on the channel information.
Yeah. So again, this is just basically, this is an artist's interpretation of what. If you could go to the next slide, there, we'll go through the slides. This is an artist's interpretation of what the workshop may have looked like. Because of course we have in my research I haven't been able to find any
pictorial reference
photographs. Yeah, there are photographs of the penitentiary and stuff like that at the time, but they only ever show it from a distance. There are some photos of inside the penitentiary, but they don't actually have any photos of inside the works. And you have to remember this was a prison workshop at the time. So, the fact that there's no photographs existing of inside of what was a prison workshop isn't overly surprising. But we do have the original plans. We do have anecdotal evidence from, people that had, officials that had visited the penitentiary at the time, including a detailed reference by, just a second, let me see if I can find his name. It was a Reverend. I'm just trying to find the name. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it was an Anglican priest at the time who wrote that they were able to cast 5-ton weights of iron from basically from their smelting capabilities at the blacksmith workshop. Now, I'm not sure of the exact year off the top of my head. I'm fairly sure it was post 1556, which is why I included the cupola furnace because that was a technology that was available at the time. The blast furnace or blast bursting Bessemer steel and blast furnace technology actually was invented around that time, but it wasn't in common usage. Whereas the cupola furnace, as we see it there, was actually something that was relatively common usage at the time. It was also something that would have been fairly easy to operate and ubiquitous with the region. So that's the reason why I include it, because according to my rudimentary math, a 5-ton weight of iron is about a cylinder that, a cylinder that is only about 20 centimeters, or that's at just under 12 inches. 12 inches. Yeah, 12 inches, 24 centimeters, or 25, 26 centimeters. So, 3/4 of a foot, about 9 to 10 inches a diameter by about 1 meter or 3 foot long. So that's not a very big amount of iron when it comes to a 5-ton weight. So, so the fact that they would have had that ability to do that. So yeah, again, these are just my interpretations from the archaeological dig. They're like, just for example, where that grindstone seems to be, there was actually a pit underneath it, like a trench, which would have explained, particularly if the like I said, those legs, this is only a first draft, so those legs would have been a little bit shorter. That stone could have actually gone into a pit in the ground, which would have held water or something like that in order to keep the stone moist. The pit that's in front of the cupola, that could have been a casting pit. Again, this is all interpretation, but this actually outlines, it can give. The aim of it was to give a visual representation to what my interpretation of the archaeological finds were, but also so when I send this through to the archaeologists, they can look at it and see, as a working smith, how that workshop could have been set up. And I think it's really interesting, and the work that my friend has done in just doing this rough outline so far, and we're still tweaking it to make it the exact way that I think it would have been, is going to take a little bit of time. But I thought it was an interesting walk back 170 odd years into, so we could see as well from, of course, there are pictures of old blacksmith workshops and stuff like that, but to have a 3D representation of one that we can actually go, hey, well, this is how it could have been set up, is relatively interesting, particularly for a workshop that was in an area that was still building up. It was still all horse and carts. It was, they were basically pioneers in that region, and they were all working on building ships and cutting logs. It was the blacksmith was a cornerstone of the building of that settlement, as it was at that stage. So yeah, and go through some of the comments while we're here. there's been a few. Good morning, everyone that's joined us. Just a second. They're all bagging out Ben Toombs, which is not uncommon. Do you see any comments there that you think stand out there, Yamas?
Somebody said the wheel was really cool. John Brunell is questioning your math. People are wondering what the heck you're talking about, and to catch them up, Adam is working closely with some high-profile archaeologists.
I am not. I am working independently.
Down in Tasmania, to help them figure out that what they have is not, in fact, a dragon excavation, but a blacksmith shop. And it just goes to show how ridiculous paleontologists, archaeologists can be. No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, if they ever listen to this, they're gonna hang me out of the coals.
Right? You can pre-warn them by saying, I fancy myself a comedian, even though nobody else does.
Yeah. So to give people a recap, I went down to Tasmania. went to one of the historical prison settlements here in Australia, and probably one of the most notable for several reasons. One, it was one of the final transportation destinations for Australia's penal colonies, being that they were the last ones to accept prisoners from the UK during the transportation period. At the start of Australia, Australia was known as a prison settlement. That ended in the 1860s, 1870s. The Port Arthur actually being closed in 1877. But also when certain prisons around Australia, certain penitentiaries, penal colonies had actually been closed, they actually ended up transporting some of their prisoners to Port Arthur, and it was known as being very, very brutal to live there, to work there, to be a prisoner there. And that included children from the ages of 9 upwards to adulthood. There was a separate penal colony for them called Point Pure, which was literally about maybe a mile across the water. And like I said,
juvie.
Port Arthur was... and Port Arthur was known as one of the most brutal penal colonies in Australia's history. And unfortunately, it's also known in recent history as part of the reason why Australia has such strict firearms laws. There was a tragedy that happened there in 1996 where a psychotic armed individual unfortunately opened fire on a cafe full of people. Which of course led to Australians turn around saying enough is enough with our firearms legislation at that stage, and of course that is a tragedy that still marks. It was just another dark chapter in the history of Port Arthur, but again, this was from a period of time. This blacksmith shop was a period of time where this was still an operating penitentiary, and the people that worked in it, the blacksmiths that worked in it, weren't freemen. They were in and of themselves. They were also convicts. So there is a short list of names that we have for some of the people that operated. But the blacksmith shop operated from the start of the penal colony in 1833 to when this blacksmith shop was built in 1856, all the way through to just before it closed in 1877. There's records of this blacksmith shop operating until the mid or early 1870s, about 1873, 1874. So there was a blacksmith or several blacksmiths or blacksmiths and strikers and tinmen and casters and all that type of thing found of working in the blacksmith shop of Port Arthur from 1833 all the way through. And it's actually noted in the original colony documents that the 2 prefabricated buildings that they had to start the colony when the original prisoners were brought there were only 2 prefabricated buildings. One was the commissioner's residence, being the overseer of the prison, and the other one was the blacksmith shop, and everything else from there had been built either by stone or by timber that they cut and used from native materials from the area. So the blacksmith shop, it was again one of the 2 prefabricated buildings, and then they went onwards to build the 3 of them that followed from stone, so stone or brick. But yeah, I found it extremely interesting. I've got a 6-page report, and that's just the report that I've done. Again, I'm not working closely with the archaeologist. This is a passion project that I've seen simply because because of the round stone that I think is the wheelwright stone, and also because one of the archaeologists, Dr. Tuffin, posed some questions about the archaeology, and if anyone had an idea, to email them and let them know what they thought it was. And we're blacksmith. We are people. The people listening to this and watching this are people that have an idea about what these things could have been, and particularly with the amount of research I've done into my books and into the practical blacksmithing annotated, and also into the book that I'm writing at the moment. I did have a knowledge of what it could have been. And I actually came across an article written in 1903. It wasn't an article, it was a letter written in 1903 to one of the magazines in the research that I'm doing, that actually mentions how that particular smith, I think it was G.H. Travers, a blacksmith from Hobart, had started his apprenticeship and started working as a blacksmith 45 years earlier, which puts it around the 1960s, the 1860s, as a blacksmith. And only in 1903, 1902 did Mr. Travers put in a iron wheelwright's platform, or tiring platform. And that was the first one in Tasmania. And his father had, Mr. Travers' father had been operating as a blacksmith and had started his trade 60 years prior, which puts him in the 1840s. And he had used a stone tiring platform as well. So it was contemporary evidence that they used stone platforms for putting iron tires on wheels at the time, and that kind of just started a whole thing of me going, wow, this is interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's quite a week,
Yeah.
So your week was exciting. I guess guess I can go into how my week was.
Oh yeah, I can go on.
We're still on the intro to the show. So Alexis popped in, stopping by to say, "Hope y'all have a good show. Sorry I couldn't grace this illustrious group with my presence today," and I was going to get to that. Back in a no signal zone, so it's just me and Adam. So y'all gotta suffer. The star of the show isn't here. But yeah, I feel like we already picked the topic. Damn it. So yeah, my week. Again, I've got family coming down. They're on their way. They're in Ohio right now. I think about 8 hours away. They'll be rolling in probably around 6 or 7. And with that, I will not be live tonight, because I have to kind of, be there when they get in and whatnot. But anyway, yep, they're coming down tonight, and yeah. I had a weird week. It's like a lot of work to prepare for them to get here, and this, that, and everything. But also I was, so I had a few weeks back, I had my truck brought into the shop to get it taken, get a few repairs done, and the electrical issue that's been happening with my truck is now still ongoing, and to the point where I believe it may be the starter, which they did not check. I didn't ask them to. They checked the alternator and the batteries and said everything should be good. Yeah, I was heading out to the grocery store yesterday and stopped and grabbed some bugs for my lizards at OBX Lizard Land, and pulled up into the parking lot, shut my truck off, went in, grabbed the worms, got out. My truck wouldn't start. It was like, God, battery was dead. So I had the owner of the place come out, Paul, awesome dude, came out. He pulled up his big old diesel and hooked up, and, just, again, wouldn't start. The solenoid for the starter was ticking, but, just wouldn't go. It's like, God dang it. So I called for a tow, killing more money, I swear, I'm going to be broke by the end of the week. Flat freaking broke. And I got it home, set it up. My windows were rolled down and couldn't roll up because I had no battery. So I hooked up my jump charger to it, and rolled my windows up, and then I'm like, I've got it on 200 amp jump start, and I'm like, that's a lot more power than, you know, a regular jump start from another vehicle can offer. Let me see. And it started. Now, it was a rough start, you know, the starter seemed to be really trying. I hope it's the starter because that's relatively easy to fix compared to if there's a power issue or a crankcase issue, which, oh, dang it. But yeah, so I'm going to replace the starter and hope for the best. You know, I've also noticed while I was down there a few, you know, struts for the steering that need to be replaced. And those are easy, like $20 on Amazon, and then 2 bolts and swap them out. But, you know, that'll stiffen up my steering and make my truck even more safer than it already isn't. But yeah, I got to get all of that done before September because I am the primary mode of transportation for me and Alexis to get up to Quad State this September. Abso-freaking-lutely worst case scenario, I'm renting a truck, you know, or, you know, yeah, renting a truck or a SUV or something to get us up there. So that's, you know, or renting one of my work vans, you know, that might be easier. But yeah, so that's my week in a nutshell. Yet again, my truck was up on a flatbed. Sucks every time. Yeah, sucks every time. Y'all go ahead and let the jokes fly about, you know, my truck and me, you know.
We don't need to, Yamas. It's an ongoing joke anyway.
Yeah.
So just to address a few of the comments. So Paul Orchard said history of Australia is fairly new. The scheme of things. Nothing here is more than 250 years from Western culture. That's true. So just to give you guys, particularly you guys in the US, a little bit of reference, right? The American Civil War was 1861 to 1865. So that's right in the middle of the period of that I'm talking about with this blacksmith shop. So that kind of give you a reference to what was happening in your part of the world while this was happening in our part of the world. Part of the reason why transportation to Australia, the British started sending their prisoners to Australia was because of the American War of Independence and then the failure of the War of 1812. Because they couldn't send them to the US anymore, and they started sending them to Australia because Australia became
a
penal colony because of that. What the heck? What?
I was reading the comments. Guys, we're 30 minutes into this and we've yet to do the recap, and you're jumping back into recapping what you talked about how your week was. Are you not done with your week? Do you need more time?
Yes, I do. I told you I could ramble on this about hours. No, I'm addressing some of the comments, right, and giving them some context, right. And of course, people are talking about how they had workshops until the 80s and in the 60s and stuff like that. So yes, blacksmiths are still very important up until relatively recently. But I was just saying to give you some context about the period of Australia in which I'm talking about. You guys had a lot more history in the US at that point. And I know you guys had fought, you had fought one war, had fought the second war. I mean, there is a story, and this is, a point of Australian pride is our outlaw heritage. And everyone knows or should know about the legend of Ned Kelly being one of our most famous bushrangers here in Australia. And it's actually said that Ned Kelly based his suit of armor, which he's most famous for, off Old Ironside, one of the, I think it was Confederate or I'm not sure, but one of the Navy vessels that was built with, an iron hull from the American Civil War. So, again, this is the parallel histories here happening that seem so far apart and seem so distant, but actually are really closely linked in time. It's one of those things, where you kind of turn around and go, like the pyramids when pyramids being built were the same. They were still woolly mammoths alive, and then Cleopatra was actually born close to the invention of the iPhone than she was to the invention of the the building of the pyramids. It's one of those really weird time analogies that people kind of get their heads. It's hard to get their heads screwed around.
I'm just doing my own thing. You keep going. I'm a whittle a shark.
I was actually about to get into the April recap.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I miss most being here most of the month live because of the start of the month I was phoning it in from Melbourne airport. Then I missed it because I was on
getting
my
freaky
honeymoon.
deaky.
Yeah, and this has been the month that just never ended. It
my
went
God.
on for so long.
We're kind of a celebration that April is over. I know John Brunel is super excited to hear an update on magnesium. That we opened this month with kind of an April Fool's gag joke thing about a fictional mythological alloy called magnesium, which is a kind of a blend of a high carbon steel, iron, and mayonnaise, the condiment, to make it more malleable. And little update on that, I did a little bit more research into it, and because of my show at the beginning of this month, some MIT students actually created real-life magnesium. You can look up in the journals. It's in the scientific journals. It's been a breakthrough. I saw it on the local news, and I'm like, this can't be real. And yep, they created magnesium, believe it or not. They didn't. Don't look it up.
I was looking it up.
You were.
It would be one of those ridiculous things that probably would actually happen. So.
They were. I just had to throw that out there for John Brunel. I know it's his favorite subject is condominium alloys. Yeah, those magnesium, ketchupium, and mustardidium are all part of a different section of the elementals. We'll call them.
I have to disagree. It's not mustardium.
Huh?
It's not mustardium, right?
Mustandium?
It's mustardum.
Mustardum.
No, mustardum.
Aluminum, aluminium.
Aluminium.
Yeah. And yeah, that was in the condominium. I said it a minute ago. Condominiums. No, that's a building.
Yeah.
Condominiums.
Condominiums.
So that was what we opened the month with, and Adam did not get a chance to play with us with that one. I know that topic. There was a lot of groans and a lot of griping in the chat, and it really set the tone for how this month has gone. And I apologize for that. If any of you who threw a fit because I wasn't being serious, and I never promised to be serious, so John Brunel, he can bite me. Yeah, so figured give a quick few minutes to let Adam let us know what he thought of that.
I thought the whole month that we
planned magnesium first. Magnesium first.
Magnesium was ridiculous. Like, you know, the first thought I had when I thought of magnesium was the smell. That for some reason that was the first thing that popped into my head. The smell would have been like, even trying it would have been horrific. And of course, when I think of something like that, I actually think of trying these things for real or not. Even imaginary. Just how things would work in my head, and the thought of the smell that I got was horrific. But it was a fun idea, and I mean, stranger things have happened. We talked about this the other week in the sense of clear aluminium and also the theoretical metals and stuff like that. So the fact that we've got tractor beam technology, that's you know, so magnesium was the least outlandish thing you could have had a come
right.
up. So
And a real quick side note again about the magnesium episode. For those of you who are listening to the podcast and don't catch the show, the magnesium episode will not has not and will not be uploaded to the podcast. And the reasoning on that is it was more of a fun little me talking about it and then reading the chat. And that entire episode was written by ChatGTP AI, just because I wanted to play with it. So, you know.
Was it really?
Huh?
I don't know whether you're kidding.
I'm not joking.
With you,
I am not joking.
Joking.
This is not a joke. The episode on magnesium was written by ChatGTP. Okay, so I am not joking on that.
Fair enough.
I used AI to flesh out that idea that I had, and it actually came out. Knowing that, it was like, you know what, that actually turned out pretty good considering it's a ridiculous concept. So moving on from magnesium, our second week of April was when we discussed aluminum antioxidant, or what was it? Alon, the transparent aluminum, transparent aluminum. Because I'm trying to mix the two. Aluminum. I'm trying to make it sound really, really bad.
I was there for that episode. I remember this one.
John Burnell's saying, "Oh dear God, it gets worse." No, transparent aluminum is a real thing. It is a real thing that you can outsource and purchase. Okay, It exists. It is not a made up, or it is a made up steel that somebody went, let's do it, or a made up metal, And to be fair to purists out there, when it looks like glass, it is basically, glass with aluminum molecules in it. So it is more a ceramic than it is a metal. However, it, for the purposes of our discussion, transparent aluminum does exist, so yes, it may not be a forgeable metal, or a metal in the sense that we would consider a metal, but it is ceramics with metal molecules. So yeah.
And to give those guys listening later, or the guys in the chat, a little bit of context, the reason why this month was so outlandish was because it's April. It started off with April Fools. That's the reason why we did magnesium. And to continue around that line, it wasn't so much this month was April Fools, but we thought, well, it's April. It's a month that, we can have some fun with, because we've already done one ridiculous episode being magnesium. We may as well continue down the track of topics that are interesting or thought-provoking or sci-fi. And it's the reason why we discussed Alon, because it was a metal that originally was sci-fi, was originally a joke, was originally not real fantasy, that... I mean, it was an idea from the 1980s movie, Star Trek. So, it was outlandish, and then it became a real thing. So it was encouraging the thought juices to flow. And I found it, and again, I was there for that episode. So we got to talk about tractor beam technology and all that type of thing. And, the whole idea of the world being built off the back of an anvil. Metallurgy is still a key component to modern day life. So,
yeah,
that's it. And as Sally just said, aluminium oxynitride.
Actually, if you read it, it's spelled the American. It's aluminum oxynitride.
Well, actually, technically, because it is an American product and it is an American patented product, it would be aluminum oxynitride.
Absolutely,
yeah. So I will, in all fairness, I will say aluminum oxynitride for that, because that's what it is.
America. And it was created using the imperial system. Feet and inches rather than pounds, or feet, inches, and pounds rather than kilometers.
Do you want to try and back that up with facts?
No. I don't have facts. I got jokes.
I would near, can scientists come up with it? I would near on guarantee it was done with metric.
Okay.
Anyway,
So following the sci-fi technologies and metals come to reality episode, which was a very interesting episode. I do suggest y'all check that one out. We then went into discussing Atlantis and possible theories of the technologies of Atlantis and all that stuff, and look possible locations. And that was a fun episode because it was, to me, that's what kind of started this whole discussion we had back end of December, early January or whatever. Yeah, it was pretty much end of December, the last couple weeks of December.
Yeah.
On the sidebars we were talking about, like, I ended up catching some articles and reading some or watching some videos on Atlantis and this and that, and I thought some of the stuff that it came up with was interesting. And knowing that Adam is an avid historian, I mean, come on, working very closely and in tight ties with a archaeological dig in in Tasmania. Yeah. But yeah, I brought it up, and he thought I was messing with him. He thought I was, going the whole ancient aliens route, which is a whole nother topic, and was getting
and
really upset, really upset about it. I'm like, and it's like, no, I'm like not joking, and I'm talking scientifically here. I'm not bringing up aliens. I'm talking, and it's like, finally we were able to have a legit conversation on it. And Alexis was like, why don't we just make this a show? You two arguing about Atlantis. And that brought up the whole, like, well, let's do this year. Let's discuss ancient blacksmithing techniques and the history of metallurgy in the world, and that formed the idea and the premise for this show. So the Atlantis episode is a very special episode in that it's kind of a personal callback to us on what got us started with this year's theme. And it wasn't the best episode that happened, because there were some it wasn't the best viewed episode, and its metrics. Our metrics this month are crap, I tell you. Our metrics this month are crap.
But John, I was actually there because I made sure I was there for the Atlantis episode, because I mean, I did some research into it, and again, this is a thing that started us off down this path, just to get the juices flowing and stuff like that. And look, I'll be quite frank to our listeners and viewers. I am not someone that takes well to conspiracy theories. I have family members that are avid conspiracy theorists and flat earthers, and I am the type of person that I know that the ancient Greeks proved that Earth was round, 3,000 years ago,
hey, Roy. 4,000 years
ago. So, conspiracy theorists without foundation drive me nuts. However, and the whole particularly ancient aliens drives me up the wall, in the sense of, people turning around go, we can't figure out how they did it back then. It was too advanced for humans at the time, must be aliens. I'm the type of person that turns around and goes, well, these people back then, 4, 5, 10,000 years ago, were modern humans. They're just as smart and just as capable as we are now. Exactly. And then the meme that the Amez brought up is exactly right. Not necessarily that the ancient pyramids and stuff like that were built in that manner. Mathematics and angles and all that type of thing aside, there are some technology that we're not quite aware of how they did it. But to immediately turn around and go aliens is a personal and deep-seated gripe for me, because like these were modern humans with all the intelligence and capability that we have now, that that were smart and had advanced. That these are people of we're talking about Pythagoras that come up with we literally have Pythagorean theorem named after the angles and stuff like that of triangles, who recorded it. But that's not to say that these weren't concepts that existed beforehand, that used by trades or whatever. So that's the reason why it's a deep seated gripe to me. So yeah. But this was the conversation that happened in November or December that started all this.
Yeah,
because Yames a slight misunderstanding to begin with, and then Yames decided to stir me up about ancient aliens.
I just like seeing that vein pop. I'll pause you for a moment. Alexis just popped in, and I doubt she's got much time.
Yeah, that's correct. How are you guys doing this weekend?
I'm fantastic.
Fantastic.
Good.
I got some truck repairs to do, but still better.
Yeah, I got that. I heard that bit. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just that this rig that we've got out here in the middle of nowhere, they move every 7 days, and right now they're moving on Sundays. So until they have a downhole problem, which delays them by a day, I'm going to be out here every freaking Sunday for the foreseeable future, and it's just irritating the crap out of me. And some other guy is on the quote unquote shit list, so he's on night shift for the foreseeable future. That screws me too, because I love my night shift. But yeah, I mean, I had a very busy week, so to speak. I came back to work on Tuesday afternoon, or no, Monday evening. I came home. I was supposed to work Tuesday, it canceled, and then I worked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 84 hours. That really sucked. I went to work at I don't know, 4 o'clock yesterday morning, and I'm still working now. I drove straight from one rig. I left at midnight last night, stopped by the shack, took a shower, and drove straight to this one, another 2 hours further away. And it's been a hell of a week. But on the upside, I made enough money on my last check to go ahead and buy my airfare for Quad State.
Yay!
I'm also I'm going to wait until next payday to get it though, because this payday is looking like it's going to be pretty good as well. But I also want to get the trip insurance thing, that way, just in case some kind of an emergency happens, I'm not just out $500. So, but yeah, that was my week, and I'm like I said, I'm sorry I couldn't really. I don't have enough for video. I'm surprised my audio is even coming through right now. Typically out here, if you got an AT&T phone, you're golden. But if you got Verizon, you got nothing. And I'm Verizon. For some reason, it seems to be working. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great week. And I am going to slide on out of the Discord and listen while I can on the live stream portion. Maybe chime in the chat here and there while I wait on these guys to unhook the hydraulic lines to this doghouse and set out my last piece. So
right on.
I will hopefully see you guys next week for a live and in-person episode. And if I don't, I'll phone it in if I can.
Right on. We hope to have you. Thanks for popping in.
Well, I won't see you next week, but it'll be good to hear from you again.
I wanted to. Yes. What are we gonna? Since I wasn't in pre-show and I'm not gonna be in after show. What's the plan for next week? I mean, because we were supposed to start the one deal today, and since that got pushed off, are we going to start that next week, or are we going to push that back 2 weeks and wait on you again?
Yep. So a little bit of behind the scenes for the audience here. May begins Egypt. June is China. July is American colonial and industrial era. August, we hope to have Christ-Centered Ironworks as a guest for our segments on Baroque and Rococo. Rococo? I don't know. September will probably be all about Quad State. October is Gothic, Victorian, castles, because of spooky season. And November, being the turkey month, is pre-colonial Americas, Aztec, Mayan, American Indians, and such. That's kind of what we have as our rough schedule, so you guys know. Yeah. So there's that.
So yeah, Starting next week.
Egyptian starts next week, and
Okay.
if I'm doing it solo, we'll get together sometime during the week and come up with a plan for what we're going to do next week.
All right, I'll get my material together and throw it in the podcast stuff chat. That way, it's there for anybody to reference in case I can't make it.
Heard. All right.
All right, I got to check out, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Later.
Bye. And look at Roy saying, "Where's Christmas?"
Right? We don't even have November locked down. I gotta send.
Still,
my brother and his wife just entered into West Virginia, so I just sent them the John Denver song. Because you have to listen to that while you're going through West Virginia. Anyway, so that's a good one, Ben. During December, we can discuss the architecture and the metalworking of Whoville. That'd be a fun one. No, but yeah. So yeah, we're gonna make Roy do our live streams for December. And for all that. Anyway. So
we're talking about Atlantis and the plausibility of some of the thing, and then the last episode, of course, was
extraterrestrial metalwork.
Thank Christ I wasn't here for that.
You were here in spirit, and
I was at work and I popped in and popped out, thankfully, because I heard someone. And this episode would have driven. You would have got the vein popping.
Yeah. Now that was we tried to have as serious of a discussion about alien metallurgy and alien blacksmiths as we could. We took what science we could apply to it and speculation, like that creative speculation, and we discussed everything from like on an alien world, what would the blacksmithing be like? Different types of alien civilizations, how would they develop metals? We had a bit of a discussion going into how underwater forging could have potentially speculatively developed, how different and similar a silicon-based life form would, work metals. We also discussed, like an energy-based life form not needing to, because if they're energy-based, that they've obviously developed the ability to maneuver matter, naturally, so you no need to light a fire. Just, okay, I want a hammer, this becomes a hammer, or I want a knife, this becomes a knife. So yeah, it was legit. We tried to be as serious as possible. Again, another episode where I pulled heavily on ChatGTP, on its AI speculative stuff, and it was hilarious because every entry that I put in from that started with, aliens don't exist. Hypothetically, here's what it would be like, and it's like, shut up, ChatGTP. Yeah.
Now, on that note, I do want to clarify something for both you, Yamez, and for the people in the chat. I am not an alien or extraterrestrial life denier. I am a firm believer that the universe is far too big for us to be the only intelligent beings in it. And it's far too old. Yeah, whether we're the first intelligent beings to exist or not, you got the Fermi paradox that takes into play. Takes into play there. I am not an extraterrestrial life denier, but I'm also not a conspiracy theorist in the sense of they're among us.
Yeah, no, I think they're among us. I mean, we have some good examples of aliens in our chat alone.
Well, that's true, but yeah,
I'll let the chat
but
decide who the aliens in our chat is.
maybe I'm an alien. Actually, that harkens back to the conversation that we were having a little bit earlier this week. Guys in the chat, I actually watched a documentary on the history of the Conch Republic, which Yamez was an active citizen of the Conch Republic for many years, and I called Yamez an illegal alien, but apparently he was never actually a citizen, an official citizen of the Conch Republic, because you guys in the US don't allow dual citizenships. So in order to get an American citizenship, you must, doesn't matter where you're from, you must give up your existing citizenship. So so I was bagging Yamez out for that for a little while, but apparently he was a freshwater conch, not a saltwater conch. So
yeah, the history. Maybe one day we'll do a history lesson on the Conch Republic and their choice of weapons. I'm only going to leave it at this. Their blacksmithing, their forging of weapons, and all of that stuff.
I suppose in the creation of their weapons, they did use a mixture of materials and fire and heat in order to create them. Yeah. So I'll give you that.
Baker, blacksmith, God, I love the Conch Republic. But so,
and then of course we get to this episode. So the reason why this was just a recap is because technically we're not into May yet. Well, I am. It's now first of May. So pinch of the punch for the first day of the month. It is technically now the 1st of May here in Australia. Here in the Australian Central Standard Time. It's currently 12:26 a.m. on the 1st of May, but it's still the 30th of April there. So we kind of figured, well, today's technically the last day of April. We may as well just recap the fun that we've had this month, because in my opinion, it has been fun. Sure, our metrics might have not been great for YouTube. We might not have had the viewership that we usually do, but like sometimes you just got to be silly, I get and the reason why I say that is my whole trip down this archaeology thing, which Yamez is still currently poking fun about me, being a very serious thing, and it is serious, but I'm not seriously working with the archaeologists. This started as a lark. This started as me going to look at some ironwork on our honeymoon because it was fun, and it's now turned into It's turned into 6 pages, drawings, references. I've got about 13 or 14 pages of information and notes, apart from my 6 pages of writing into this project. And it was just because it was fun and thought-provoking. And that's kind of what the whole point of this month was, in my perspective, to have a bit of fun, to have a little bit of get the creative juices flowing, and just go a different direction.
A break from the heaviness of heavy research in history, because what we are trying to do, and we discussed this at the first episode of the year, what we're trying to do is to be a little bit different than the other blacksmithing shows and podcasts out there, that talk techniques, talk tools, talk steel, like we do that, but it's kind of a sidebar to how we got here as blacksmiths, and that's why a lot of people are like, oh my God, history. Yeah. It's like, without history happening, we wouldn't be here today. So that's what this all is about, is we're doing deep dives into, the roots essentially of blacksmithing, and we're going as deep as, we're going. That's why we went into Atlantis, because that was some 13,000 years ago. We're trying to go as if I could find freaking evidence of blacksmithing or metalworking from Neanderthals, you bet your butt I'd try and write a paper on it, or try and write an episode on it. If I found that dinosaurs had blacksmiths, I'd be writing an episode on that. But You know, because it's the start of what we know as blacksmithing. And that's the purpose of this theme for this year. So we're trying to do a history, a metal, history, tool, you know, and intersperse techniques in that, you know. And so it's like,
Yeah.
I really hope that at some point, and we've had some really great episodes where we've had some really great, you know, interactions with you viewers, and some really you know, great metrics and everything, and we've had some that just, you know, like, I think John Burnell like pushed a button to ban me from you, or shadow ban me on YouTube or something. He reported us for disinformation or something. But you know, I really hope that by the end of the year, you know, like the value of what we're doing shows, you know, and from a blacksmith's point of view and a teaching point of view, if we can pull in some of the history buffs that, you know, aren't really into blacksmithing, but you know, it's like, huh, that's interesting. And oh, they're talking blacksmithing's still a thing. You know, you wouldn't believe how many people don't realize that people still do what we do. You know, like there are people out there that think that like it comes off of an, like everything is born in an assembly line. You know, it's like chicken, that can't be a real thing. You know, like there's idiots out there, you know, and we you know, trying to educate from a different point of view, you know.
But and then to add to that, you know, like the reason why we do a little bit of silliness here and there is because, you know, life's life's short. You know, it's too short to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
I've always said, you know, life, if you take life seriously takes you.
I like that.
You end up with grey hairs. You end up with grey hairs and, you know, wrinkled skin and you know, you got to look for the fun in life, and we all get some sort of entertainment out of, you know.
Happy birthday, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, happy birthday, Stephen. Yep. No, yeah, we all get some sort of entertainment out of hitting hot metal. But I mean, for example, and a perfect example of this for me is Roy's NyQuil live streams. They were absolutely hilarious. I loved them. Roy, I love you. your NyQuil live streams are probably the best ones I've ever seen. Simply because, you know, they're so random and you know. Of course, you know, our a little bit of silliness takes some of the heat off, you know, these intense subjects that we do every week.
Yeah.
And sure, we might cop a little bit of flack, particularly, you know, we've done ancient Rome and stuff like that, and they're all interesting. I mean, I was talking to someone just the other day about, you know, how advanced the ancient Romans were. But also, as Yamez said, you know, there are some people out there that have some interesting views on the world. I was quite literally today watching a video about a guy that didn't realize that the rear wheels on a car didn't turn, only the front wheels did. And it's kind of like,
well,
this person drives a car.
To be fair to that, rear wheel drive cars do exist.
Yes, but not rear wheel turning cars mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's like I say, you know, it's as an explanation, like Adam just said, as an explanation for this past month, and it's the silliness that we do, that does peek its head out on the show, and admittedly, this month was a very silly month. You know, we have Alexis, a scientist, knows the periodic table like back of the hand kind of thing. You know, can take a handful of dirt and extract precious metals from it. You know, if one was so inclined, knows how to do that. Can make a hydrogen powered. You know, basically a scientist. And then we have Adam, a historian, world-renowned historian, working with archaeological dig sites. You know, and then you have me. What do? Well, I drink and I know things. No,
You tie it all together.
I tie it all together. You know, I'm comedy. I'm the layman. You know, I don't know history. I don't know sciences. You know, however, I'm a clever guy. You know, who can learn, and I'm like the yeah, I'm the layman in the situation. So it's like yeah, and I have history and comedy. So it's like that's the package that is the Impractical Blacksmiths. You know, so for those of you out there who don't like comedy, sorry. For those of you who out there who do like, you know, the bit of silliness and the comedy, you're my people. You're my people. You're my people, and you're welcome to sit on the couch with me. You know.
But also, I mean, and we've got plenty of seriousness coming up. You know, this year we've already had plenty of seriousness.
My little rant just lost us 4 viewers. Sorry, I watch metrics. You know.
He's always got the metrics up. You know, Yamez is Alexis is our behind the scenes producer, and she's the one that does all our you know, uploading and stuff like that and editing of our podcast. Yamez is the one that watches the metrics live and sees how we're going. And make sure that
I'm the during stream producer. I'm the live producer, and I can actually show you guys. Yeah, I can actually show you guys the. Let me see, primary monitor, show, and yeah, just to transition that. This is what I'm viewing on my primary monitor, you know. So yeah, and Alexis takes all of the information that we collect throughout the show, and does the edits and everything, and manages the podcast aspect of it. As a group, we discuss scheduling. And yeah, I'm pretty much just the on-air technician. That's it. You know,
this show would fall apart without you, Yamez. Yeah. But you know, it's so, you know, we have, you know, a lot of ideas, and we pre-plan, and Yamez keeps us all in line. You know, and we have our, you know, we have our visiting experts. You know, like
we've had so many guests.
Yeah, I love when we get Sam in. We've had Eduardo, and we love when we get Roy in. And we love, you know, Roy's our resident master smith, and we get our, you know, we love getting Tim when he's able to drop in and say g'day. You know, we've had a fair few guests, you know, and we'd love to get more guests coming up in the future. We even tried, and see, you guys don't know this because unfortunately we weren't successful in it, but we actually had an actual another YouTube channel. We're trying to get a YouTube channel and historian that specializes in ancient Rome. We actually tried to get them to come over and have a chat with us about ancient Rome and all that type of stuff. Unfortunately, the time schedules didn't.
Yeah, the timing schedule.
Yeah, so you know, because unfortunately they had things going on in their life that wasn't able to wasn't able to happen. So you know, but you know, we do try to get not just us guys, but you know, experts as well to come in and talk about particular subjects. That's the reason why, you know, we mentioned in August, I think it is. It's you know, Baroque and Rococo, and we want to get
Roy.
We want to get Roy to come and have a chat to us about it, because I mean that's his area of, not only is do we consider him a master smith, but that's his area of passion, and to give him a show where he can just talk about Baroque for a while. Yeah. And I've heard him talk about Baroque ironwork. He's like me with any historical topic. He just goes on and on and on. And it's great. It's fantastic to see him light up.
Now, we're presented with an interesting opportunity right here, right now, Adam, and that is we're kind of live casting the thought process behind how the show goes, or how the design of the show goes, and we're talking guests and you know, potential future guests and past possible guests and this and that, and it might be interesting to get if we can sometime for the month of May get somebody who is an Egyptian historian popping in here. That would be kind of neat. If we can find anybody, an Egyptian historian, and thinking farther ahead, because it is harder to get somebody in on short notice. Thinking farther ahead, when we get to the Gothic stuff in October, I believe it was 2 years ago. Everybody knows my perception of time is really screwy. But the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral, and then the blacksmiths and the artists that were recreating it, rebuilding it. It would be kind of neat if we can get a hold of somebody that's on that crew, or somebody that was in that part of that,
really cool,
to discuss modern applications for recreating something as grand as the Notre Dame Cathedral, which is the prime example of Gothic architecture. You know, when you talk Gothic architecture, you're gonna talk about the Notre Dame Cathedral, you know, with its flying buttresses and its spires and all that architecture that goes into that Gothic field. You know, so just things to consider, and that this show, we are trying to grow it and grow its range and everything. And I know this channel has been around for 5 years, but the concept of the channel has shifted slightly to being more live stream centric, obviously, and informative. And with that, Alexis has done a great job and doing a sideshow on the channel called Alexis I call it Unhinged. I'm trying to be right because, you know, okay, Alexis Unleashed. And that's a random time. It's not a pre-scheduled thing. And Adam's been so busy, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and discuss it. But Adam, I would like you to pick a topic or pick a time, you know, do also a sideshow on this channel. You can either discuss what it's like to survive in a country where everything's trying to kill you, or you can discuss, you know, history of Australia and this or that, a non-blacksmithing or light ties to blacksmithing show, you know, on your own schedule, you know, that you host, that you run, and it will be a fourth block on this channel, you know.
I'll have a think.
Yeah,
I'm really not that interesting.
No, you are. Shut up. You are. You know, you are the voice.
But back. Trying to understand it. Back to what Yamez was saying earlier. And for those that didn't catch the try and understand it, he called me the voice. It's a song. Look it up. Back to what he was saying before, if you know someone that's involved or has links to the Notre Dame project, particularly even John Switzer mentioned a book that was written about the ironwork from Notre Dame. If you know one of the authors or something like that of that book before it was burnt down, and you think, have a chat to them if they're interested in coming on the podcast. We'd love to speak to them, particularly when we get to the Gothic in a couple of months' time when we get the Gothic ironwork, because that would be amazing. Just the the research and how they conducted the research and all that type of thing would be. I could probably sit here and listen to them for hours. Because
and that show might be it might be a kind of a situation where when we have a guest like that, or when Roy comes in to talk Baroque, the history of Baroque ironwork and the Baroque revival and all that stuff, it may be, you know, the show extended and then broken up into several episodes for the podcast, you know. But yeah. But yeah, so it's all just, you know, like we said at the beginning of this is kind of our final thoughts segment, but just shared. You know, at the beginning of all of this, it was explaining about the silliness and not apologizing, but apologizing, you know, and it just turns into why we're so passionate about the future of this show and the future of this channel, of where we're going and what we're planning and what we're doing. So,
yeah, and next year is going to be completely different again. You know, we haven't
we might
completely nailed down
history
what we're
might
doing
bleed
yet,
into next year, but yeah, you know, each season is going to be a theme, you know, and yeah, you know.
I think I reckon, just putting it out there now, next season we focus on, and this isn't because it's a vested interest of mine, but we focus on books, particularly if, you know, books on blacksmithing regarding, you know, or even poem. Like, I mean, a perfect example is, you know, Jess Adams does her poem every week, you know, so working on, you know, discussing poems and books on blacksmithing or covering blacksmithing might be a good thing to cover, you know, for a season coming up in the future. I'll have to write that down in the chat so we don't forget.
Yeah, all of this. Well, we have it on record and everything. You know, it is recorded and everything. Paul Orchard says that he can ask. He knows an architect in Switzerland who has a connection with the rebuild of the Notre Dame project. So, you know, like, yeah, anybody who's got an in that it's not just some freaking, you know, schlock goofball tiny channel going, hi, come talk with us. You know, really sell us up. And of course, you can email us, you know, and share our email, the impracticalblacksmiths@gmail.com, and all that. It would be fantastic.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much getting to the end of, you know, the show. So Alexis isn't here to give us her final thoughts. So my final thoughts is, first of all, I mean, this sounds terrible, but thank the gods that April is over.
Shut up.
It was a long month. It was fun, but it was long. So now we can move on to more serious topics. But yeah, so my final thoughts is I've had a fun month. It's been a long month. It's been a fun month. We've talked about interesting topics. I wasn't here for half of it. But this month has had some interesting outcomes for me. Of course, I've still got lots of work. I wish I could show you my desk at the moment. I have paper and bits of paper and notes literally covering my desk to the point that sometimes I can't see my keyboard for the notes that I've got.
Correspondence with archaeologists?
Well, no, it's notes for not only my archaeology stuff, it's also notes for the books I'm writing and references to where I've got to pull stuff from and notes of paragraphs and chapters I have to write and how I'm going to organize everything. It's a mess. So it's but this month has been interesting. It's been thought-provoking. It's been exciting. I'm looking forward to getting into the meat of the second thing that started our conversations and the topic that got to this year. And I mean, we alluded to it right all the way back in January, being Egypt. And some of the theoretical metallurgy that is in it. And it seems to be, funnily enough, it seems to be a hot topic this year. And I've seen quite a few different, even Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan's podcast has had mentions of, you know, Egyptology and stuff like that, and no one can figure out, you know, how they did it. La 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 la. And it'd be really, really interesting if we could have a chat on this show and get someone and get people interested in what our theories are, and someone tries it, and hey ho, it works. That'd be really cool.
Even Netflix and Jada Pinkett Smith produced and released or is releasing or produced or whatever a fan fiction about Egypt. Actually about Cleopatra, you know, and I refuse to use their terms of documentary, but it is a 100% fan fiction. So, we will be going into all of that, and discussing throughout the month how it is speculated that they built the pyramids, how we speculate they built the pyramids, what potential tools they used, what adaptations to existing tools they used for such a large thing, where the technologies for moving the stones. I mean, obviously, give me a large enough lever and I'll move the world, all of that stuff. So it's gonna be a fun month,
Yeah, but this one's going to be based heavily in reality, whilst it still might be speculative in some parts.
It's going to be based on speculative, based on science, and based on fact. We may speculate, some things, but it is pretty much going to be as historically accurate as can be, But with that,
historically plausible.
Historically plausible. That's a better term.
Yeah. So before we get into Yame's final thoughts, thank you very much for joining us, guys. It's always a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to have you guys with us. You can find Yames on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Island Metal Forge. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget, if you have any questions and suggestions, you can leave it under the hashtag Metal of the Week in the YouTube community chat on Discord. And that's for a Tool of the Week, a Metal of the Week, or any other topic, as long as it's somewhat blacksmithing related. Or you can email us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com. If you found us on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, or any other podcasting promoter that carries the best shows like us, we generally upload every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 11:30 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time, but check that against your local time, and that's at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and give us a star rating if you're listening on the podcast later on. And we really do appreciate your support. Let's get to your final thoughts and wrap up for tonight there, Yamis.
Yeah, my final thoughts, like I said, we've kind of already covered our final thoughts on this episode, and, this month, actually, this whole episode was a final thoughts on the month. Just a huge thank you to all the subscribers, all the audience members, the supporters, the super chatters, the channel members, and big thank you to all the blue wrenchers out there who do their job and keep the riffraff out. And as always, massive thank you to my two co-hosts, Alexis and Adam. I could not do this without you guys. Y'all have seen what happens when I do this solo and we get shows like Magnesium. So, I try to do better. And you guys prompt me to do better. So, I want you all to just take a moment today and think about what can be done and how things can be done, and get out there and do something. Be safe, wear your PPE, and, post your journey along in the Discord. It's not super active, but it's a fun place, And if anybody has any ideas or anything, any contacts for potential guests, you can hit it in the Discord, or you can email us at the email Impractical Blacksmiths that Adam had just mentioned. And just much love to everybody. I gotta go take care of some stuff before the storm hits. The clouds to the west are getting dark and the wind's picking up, so I gotta go weed eat. Go weed whack. Or what is it? String fling? What do you call it? Wibbly wobble? Whippersnippers. Wibbly wobblers. I gotta go wibbly wobbler the grass around the house.
Yeah, whippersnip the grass.
Yeah, so I know we went a little bit long today. Alexis, I apologize. You're gonna have a hell of a time editing this one. But yeah, you guys have a wonderful day. We are going to go ahead and end it here. We may have a short post-show discussion if anybody would like to join us in the Discord. But yeah, I will talk to you all later, And bye.
Bye.